So there has been some news, obviously, with George R. Martin once again posting on his blog that he is in fact working on a new series with HBO called Road Marks, meaning, hey, here's another thing to distract him from finishing the Song of Ice and Fire books. We've talked at lengths on our YouTube channel and podcast as well. Are we ever even going to see the finale of the books? He says he's writing hundreds of pages. So that's kind of where we're at with that. Who knows at this point? But as yesterday, you and I were talking on the phone, and we were talking about, just because we also are into Wheel of Time, and we were talking because I was talking about some people I've seen in the Wheel of Time subreddit complaining about some of the things that Brandon Sanderson did in the finale of the books. And some, those are probably hardcore fans. And well, that's a Sandersonism. Like Robert Jordan would have not done that. So those who don't know, Robert Jordan, Wheel of Time series, he died before the series was finished, had an outline. Brandon Sanderson comes in, another big author, and finishes the series. And so, we've joked about, is that what may happen with the A Song of Ice and Fire series? Is George gonna die and somebody else is gonna have to finish his series? And so the question I kind of brought up to you was, would you be okay if George handed this off now to somebody else? And if he just said, hey guys, like it's too much for me to finish and I'm working on all these other projects, I'm going to hand it off to somebody else and I can work with them, somebody else that can come in and knock this whole thing out, but he oversees it. Would you be okay with that?
Well, I would be, if that was what he wanted to do, if that's what George thought what was best for the book series was to do that. If he really thought that, it is his. And I would say, okay, because maybe he does know that he can't finish it. Maybe he knows that. I think the only person who really does know is him. I really do. I think he knows what he has left, what he can do, what he can't do. I think he knows what he wants to do and what his desires are and all of that. Would he have someone come in and kind of say, hey, in reality, this is really where we're at. You need to start taking some notes and leave some stuff just in case or whatever. I think he's already maybe done that. I know there's this, every author says, no one's going to finish my series except for me. It's going to be them and them alone. Now, let me back up here. Matt introduced this whole thing saying that George is working on something else. Okay. I think Winds of Winter is coming out in 2022. I have believed in this man for over a decade and nothing. Ser Ezra is not just watchful. He is ever watchful, my friends. So I will watch. I will literally keep my watch. I won't abandon the wall. No, like literally, like it will be death. Death will take me. All right. Before I end my watch on this Winds of Winter coming. So just let it be known, George, if you're listening, he always writes in his Not a Blog. For those of you bloggers and internet people going out there blasting me for wins, that do not count Ser Ezra among that crowd because I am keeping the watch and I am keeping the faith. You know what, George? I'm not the best writer, but look, if you need some help, if you need somebody to just kind of, Matt's like, yeah, maybe he does. Maybe he does need some help. No, I don't know. Let's bounce this over to Sir Jimmy. Jimmy, I mean, thoughts on this?
So, all right. Well, I have a lot of thoughts on this. I thought about it a lot when I saw this. So, first, I'm going to answer Matt's question, then I'm going to give you my full spiel here. But would I be okay with George handing it off? I'm kind of with this. If that's what he wanted to do, if he wanted to hand it to Daniel Abraham, or he wanted to hand it to somebody like Joe Abercrombie, whatever. I'm cool with it. I think there's a lot of talented people out there. I think Daniel Abraham specifically, or someone like Robin Hobb would be awesome. Do I think that's going to happen? I don't think it's going to happen at all. George, I mean, wherever he's at with the series in his mind, it's his baby. It's his creation. And if that were to happen after he were to pass or something like that, then whatever. But I don't think it's going to happen. Would I be okay with it? Sure. I would be okay with it as long as it was his decision, not a publisher thing or something like that. I think George is beyond publishers at this point, to be honest with you. Obviously he doesn't.
Well, the only reason I bring it up, sorry to stop you, is he's already kind of done it a little bit, because he didn't write The World of Ice and Fire. He didn't write Fire and Blood. And so authors got to come in and who he worked with and was like, okay, yeah, that's fine. Okay, yeah, that's fine. And they're writing big backstory, amounts of content that it directly affect what he's doing. And so he's overseeing it. He's overseeing it. And so
he did write.
He's
Fire
also
and Blood, though, right? Or no?
So Fire and Blood, Fire. It's yes and no. Fire.
Yeah.
He didn't. He Fire and Blood is a lot of Fire and Blood, to be honest, is like word for word out of World of Ice and Fire.
Yeah.
And then parts of it are some of the novellas which he did write.
Right.
But a lot of these were other authors that he was like, okay, yeah, that's fine. That's like the whole Dunk and Egg thing in A World of Ice and Fire, where it's supposed to reveal their thing, and he's like, well, I'm not ready for that yet.
Yeah.
But so I mean he's the one who stepped in and made that decision. Now, two other guys have already finished his series. Dan and Dave. And so I mean, like it or not, those guys got to he didn't step in and tell HBO, no, sorry. I mean, that's not how that works. So he's already done it. He's already done it twice, really. He's done it with The World of Ice and Fire and all that stuff, and he did it with the TV series.
Yeah, I think that's actually a pretty good point. I think if he were to hand it off to anyone, it would probably be Ty Franck and Daniel Abraham, maybe as a team, or maybe just Daniel Abraham. So hey, you might not be wrong. Maybe or maybe we get wins and he passes on A Dream of Spring, Dream for Spring, or whatever it's called. I don't even worry about the title of that one at this point. But as a little side, if George never releases The Wind's a Winner, I don't really care anymore. I'm not waiting on it day and night. And I would also like to say, for the optimists out there, executive producing a show, I don't think any of us really have any idea what that really means.
Right.
Like, let's stop pretending like that means that George is working 12-hour days. George
Let's go.
No, he's not. He's overseeing things. Yeah.
He's, brought
consulted.
Yes. So is this a month worth of work where he has to, you know what I mean? So like for people to throw, and again, I'm not excited to hear about it, but for people to say this is just blatant, he's going to be busy for years. And it's like, that's probably not the case. Let's all calm down a little bit. The frustrating thing is that George said he would not work on anything until we finished The Wind's a Winner. And now he's working on something. So if you want to go super duper optimistic, you can say, well, hey, maybe he's by the time he starts working on the show, which could be a year. I mean, it could be a while before he has to work on the show. Maybe he plans to have it done. I don't think that's the case, but I'll in the back of my head, I'll keep that as a plus. But as a side, if he never finishes the series, it won't take away any of my adornment for the rest of the series, books 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It just doesn't affect me. But I can understand why some people it would. Does it then creep into the conversation and have an impact on the weight of this being one of the best series of all time? Probably. I mean, I think you could probably make a pretty solid argument for that. But for me as a reader and as someone who has personally enjoyed George's work, and he's my favorite writer, of course, it disappoints me a bit that I feel like maybe he has lost the fire for it. And I think that maybe he does not know how to get Dany out of Marine, because she's been there for, if you count all the years, 20 years? I mean, it feels like. I mean, there might be a real chance that he doesn't know how to tie it up at all, and he just doesn't feel comfortable putting anything out. And that sucks, but it'll never ruin what I felt at the end of Dance with Dragons. It will never ruin what I felt when I saw Lady Stoneheart come out, or of course the Red Wedding. So.
Right. Well, okay. So real quick here. So so George is credited as the author of Fire and Blood, but a lot of that is pulled from, a lot of it literally is word for word. I think the
Especially
Aegon,
the first couple chapters.
The Aegon. Yeah. And then some of it is the novellas, which are he wrote, and they're literally in here as well. So Elio Garcia, right, is who's credited as one of the authors of the World of Ice and Fire, as is George. So, and they said that there is some stuff that was meant for World of Ice and Fire that isn't in that book, that is in Fire and Blood. So it's kind of a collaboration between them. But George is the one who's specifically credited as the author of Fire and Blood. Again, it's also his series, so he can say whatever he wants. So kind of both of the things kind of going back and forth there. So yes, he may have lost the fire of it, but you know what? Winds of Winter is still in his blood. See what I did there? So
Yep.
let's go to ladies. Let's go to Lady Sara. So what do you kind of think? I mean, now we're hearing that George is writing, or he's at least somewhat involved in a new series, which has nothing to do with Westeros, with HBO. And do you kind of think that if you were to hand it off and just kind of oversee it, but we still get it, so it may not necessarily be from George, or would you be okay with that?
I think I feel like I will, because like you mentioned before, he's already kind of been doing it bit by bit. I just feel like he's really working on much more of a long game here than just Winds of Winter. With Fire and Blood 2, the Dunk and Egg stuff, I think he's going in the vein of like the Star Wars universe, where like hopefully, if you look at the literature in Star Wars, I mean, how many different writers do you have making different stories from across thousands of years? He's completely, what he's done, criticisms aside, like, the whole new show thing, I saw that tweet the other day and I was kind of like, then I was like, I don't know. Sometimes I mean, not to put it on the same scale, but sometimes I'll have something in mind that I'm going to go do, but then it's like something sort of calls you. And if there's a couple synchronicities in it, if it keeps calling to you, you got to do it. So maybe whatever this side thing he's doing with HBO is just going to kind of help bring him back to, I don't know, lighting the fire that is A Song of Ice and Fire. But yeah. I don't really have a problem with it. Especially, I think if he does Winds of Winter on his own, from there, I think we will start seeing him pass over more of his intellectual property to other people to play around with and grow and expand from. So that's what I hope. What I hope.
Okay.
Can I jump in real quick, and then we're going to go to Lady Adrienne. I want to hear what you think about this. So, Lady Sara just said something really clutch. I mean, we're talking Star Wars right here. All right, Star Wars. When you think about that, George Lucas writes 3 films. He does his thing. He does his prequels. But the whole way they're making video games. Yeah, it's canon, part of the story. Comics, sure, you go ahead. Toys, you'll make toys, go for it. Then books, you want to write the expanded universe. That actually, if he can get his core and like get at this whole being like a really great A Song of Ice and Fire, because what was nice about Star Wars, you had the originals. You had a start and a finish, and you had a great epic trilogy, and it was amazing. I would love to see him get through all of A Song of Ice and Fire, and that be George, and that be the like orthodox kind of like, this is it. This is what's up. This is from the creator himself, and everything else has to fall in line with it, meet it. Everything's measured to, like that kind of thing. I think that would be sick years down the line if he started to kind of say, yeah, let's do this. You enjoy this world. Here's what I've done. Here are the timestamps on all that kind of stuff. Here's what I think, my thoughts on it, and then let people write far back during the, the age of heroes and stuff like that. Wow, I would be blown away by that. But Lady Adrienne, what do you think about all of this going on with George Martin working on HBO show?
Well, I think going to what Lady Sara said about how working on these other products could also kind of relight a fire, and get him more inspired. Because sometimes as an author myself, like sometimes you need to just take a break and get, you need to have something else that kind of brings back your excitement. I know, like for myself, times when I've gone through like writer's block or stuff like that, if I go out and read something else, start another project, then I get all that more excited when I come back to what I was working on. So, but as far as somebody else taking over and writing, I definitely think that is a really good possibility. And it, I think of some, like somebody did that when Michael Crichton died. Like they took over, he had a book that came out after he passed away. Somebody had found a manuscript that he had worked on and, finished writing it. And I am like a diehard Michael Crichton fan. And I read that book and I can tell you, if I didn't know that he didn't write it, I wouldn't have known. And I think Stieg Larsson is another one who's done that. So, I mean, I think it occurs more often than we really know that it does. And he has such a back catalog of so much of his writing that I think it would be, it wouldn't, of course, be exactly the same. But I think that, somebody could, a talented writer could potentially do a really good job, with that. But, of course, we want it to come from George. But, sometimes it's just not. I just think of how much work must go into writing these books. So in a way, it's not really surprising to me that it has taken him so long. But, I'm kind of in the same camp as you, Ser Ezra. I think it's going to come out in 2022. My hope.
Yep.
But yeah, so I would be fine with it if he did. Of course, I would, I think of somebody like trying to pick up my stories where I've left off, and like the thought just like terrifies me, because these are people that you've created. These are stories you've created. These are, you put so much of yourself into your writing, at least I do, that, there's always a worry that the next person wouldn't be able to give it as much as you could. But I think it is possible. But I think that all just depends on, George's comfort. Like, is he comfortable handing this world to somebody else?
Yeah, and I guess again, it comes back to Game of Thrones is the most odd situation when you think about it, because he did hand it to somebody else and people hated the ending. And so now are you even more? It's like, on one hand, he already did it. He already did say, okay, have at it, because he thought I can finish. I mean, the only sort of comparison you can even come close to making is J.K. Rowling, at least in my mind. I'm sure there's definitely been other people too, but J.K. Rowling comes to mind because I believe she had finished The Goblet of Fire when the first Harry Potter book was out. So she was on the clock because they said, we're making these movies. And she was on the clock to get it, to get it out. And she did.
She did.
She did. Yes, she did. Whereas George did not. And so on
Jimmy's
one
getting
hand,
upset.
Well, it's just on one hand, he already did it. And so it's to some degree, it's like, well, okay, maybe he will just be like, you know what, that's fine. If somebody else wants to come in and finish this and I oversee it, that's fine. Because we talked about George Lucas. I mean, even still, George Lucas sold Star Wars like almost a decade ago now.
Yes.
Right. I mean, almost a decade ago, he sold it, but he is consistently consulted.
That's
he's
right.
Brought in.
He's a
looked at
writer.
everything. He's credited left and right. And everybody still talks about George Lucas. The difference is that George Lucas finished the original trilogy. So Star Wars was done and then said, okay, people can add here. I'll add later. And then still the story, you could view it as done and everything else is extra. And then, hey, we want to come in and we want to do the sequels. Okay, but that's icing on top. Or for some people, that's fruit on top that turns it into a fruit cake and it ruins it because nobody likes fruit cake. And so, I mean, you have there's that too. But so it's not like the story wasn't complete when George Lucas sold it. and so we'll ultimately see what he does. But I would totally be fine if he wanted to hand it off and let somebody else finish and he oversees it. Because really at this point, all they need to do is just make it better than season 8, and most people are gonna be happy.
All right. Yeah, you're right. Not a high bar, right?
We're gonna have season 9.
As well, yeah. I hope. I mean, I don't think season 8 told. I think there's more to the story actually. The more I think about it, but let me end with this. Can we? I mean, just any final thoughts? Anybody else? Okay. All right. Let me tell you guys something really important here. Okay. I've learned a lot of things from this series. I love this series. I love theorizing, I love speculating, all that kind of stuff. But the one thing I did learn is that night gathers, and now my watch begins. It shall not end until my death. I shall take no wife, hold no lands, father no children. I shall wear no crown and win no glory. I shall live and die at my post. I am the sword in the darkness. I am the watcher on the walls. I am the fire that burns against the cold, the light that brings the dawn, the horn that wakes the sleepers, the shield that guards the realms of men. I pledge my life and honor to the Night's Watch for this night and all the nights to come.
Amen.
Amen, right?
Let's go.
Guys. So, Sir Matt, I'll say it again.
So hold on. So what does that have to do with George finishing or not finishing?
I think he's saying that he's gonna be the guy to light the beacons when Wins the Winter comes out. Ezra's
I got you.
Will guard.
So we blow the horn. We blow the horn once, twice. So four times is the winds. The winds are coming, right? The winds of winter are coming when the horn's blown 4 times. It's gonna be like the day after tomorrow, where they're literally being chased by the cold, right? They're like running.
I will let you know.
We gotta get to the library.
I will let you know.
Freezing everything. Like
in 2022, I will come back on here and I will say, I told you. I kept the watch. I kept the faith. Okay.
Right.
I mean, I'm kind of with you.
I'm ready. I'm ready for our king to return.
Except the problem is in 2022 we're not going to care because we're going to be talking about House of the Dragon and how awesome it is. That's the thing. That's the thing is he missed. He screwed the pooch ultimately because you're not going to have more people go back and be like, we will because we're the hardcore book people, but you're not going to have more people go back and read the books and be like, oh, that's better than the show. We will, but the main 50 million people that we're watching every week, they're not going to go back because they didn't read the books in the first place. They're just going to think, well, Game of Thrones is what it is. It's like the people when I say, man, I love the Lord of the Rings movies, and those hardcore people are like, well, it's nothing like the books. I mean, they didn't even have the Scouring of the Shire or any of that stuff. I mean, that's
Christopher Lee didn't even get stabbed in the stomach.
Seriously.
Like, tried to explain to Peter Jackson.
Seriously. So I don't know. Anyway, it's great. It's a great place to stop. Let us know, guys. Leave us a comment. Let us know. And if you guys want to, this is what we do. We do our Patreon Zoom hangouts. For those of you guys who do support us on Patreon at our Bannerman tier, you can come on here. Sometimes we make videos. Most time we're just drinking White Claws and hanging out and talking about literally anything and everything. But we never know when Ez is going to press the record button and it gets thrown on YouTube. So with that, remember that Winds of Winter might be coming in 2022.